And then the truth is, okay, I'll admit it. I did actually stab her mom. I will admit it.
I know. Okay.
A girl locked in a wheelchair, a mother's suffocating love, a secret online romance that became a murder plot. What happens when the person you're supposed to trust becomes your jailer? When maternal devotion transforms into psychological imprisonment? When escape feels impossible and the only way out leads through blood? This is the dark truth. We don't just tell stories, we unravel them. Stay with us as we uncover one of the most disturbing cases of medical abuse, psychological manipulation, and murder that America has ever witnessed. In Springfield, Missouri, there lived a girl named Gypsy-Rose Blanchard. To the world, she was fragile, confined to a wheelchair since childhood. Her devoted mother, Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard, was the picture of maternal sacrifice, a woman dedicated to caring for a daughter plagued by devastating illnesses. Gypsy had muscular dystrophy. She had leukemia. She suffered from seizures. She needed oxygen to breathe. She couldn't eat solid food and had to be fed through a tube inserted directly into her stomach. Her head was completely bald, a consequence, Dee Dee explained, of numerous treatments. Dee Dee was the devoted mother, the angel in human form. Local businesses donated money. Strangers sent cards and gifts. Churches held fundraisers. Habitat for Humanity gave the Blanchard family a free house. The story was heartbreaking. A single mother, a terminally ill child, two people fighting against impossible odds. But there was darkness beneath this carefully constructed narrative, a secret. A lie so profound, so suffocating, that it would take murder to expose it. Gypsy-Rose was not sick. She never had been. From birth in 1991, her mother had been constructing an elaborate fiction. Dee Dee convinced doctors, nurses, and an entire community that her daughter was gravely ill. But the illnesses were fabrications. The medications were unnecessary. Some surgeries were performed on a perfectly healthy child. When Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee became convinced she had sleep apnea. She moved from hospital to hospital until she found doctors who would prescribe unnecessary treatments. As Gypsy grew older, the diagnoses multiplied. Muscular dystrophy, seizures, feeding difficulties, eye surgeries for vision problems she didn't have. Her salivary glands were removed. Tubes were implanted in her ears. By her teenage years, Gypsy had undergone multiple unnecessary surgeries and years of unnecessary medications. By adulthood, only 16 of her teeth remained, not from illness, but from the side effects of needless treatments. She could not go to school. She could not make friends. Everything was controlled by Dee Dee, every moment, every interaction, every breath. The Blanchards lived in public housing on government assistance substantially increased because of Gypsy's alleged medical conditions. The system was designed to help families with catastrophic illness. Dee Dee exploited it with calculated precision. As Gypsy entered her teenage years, control intensified. She was not allowed to attend regular school. Homeschooled by her mother, she was forbidden from leaving the house without Dee Dee, from interacting with peers, from having a private phone or email. In 2011, at 14 years old, Gypsy attempted escape with a BB gun she believed was real. She shot her mother 10 times. The injuries were minor. Dee Dee claimed it was a robbery attempt at Walmart. Police never investigated. Gypsy's cry for help was silenced. After the shooting, Dee Dee's control became even more oppressive. She smashed Gypsy's computer and phone with a hammer. She threatened to destroy her fingers if she tried to escape again. She handcuffed her to bed. She starved her for 2 weeks. She told Gypsy she had filed paperwork claiming her daughter was mentally incompetent, meaning no one would believe her if she went to the police. Yet Gypsy possessed resilience and cunning her mother could not completely suppress. Around 2012, she secretly accessed a computer and created a Facebook account under a false name, Emma Rose. She created an email address. For the first time, she touched a world beyond her mother's suffocating control. On a Christian dating website, she created a profile searching for connection, for love, for escape. His name was Nicholas Gaudejon. He lived in Wisconsin, about 600 miles from Springfield. Only 1 year older than Gypsy, he had autism spectrum disorder and Asperger syndrome. He had experienced hallucinations. He had few friends and spent most of his time online, isolated from the world. On October 9, 2012, Nicholas saw Gypsy's profile. It was almost like love at first sight, he would later say. He felt an instant connection to this girl who presented herself as chronically ill, confined to a wheelchair, struggling with a controlling mother. Gypsy was hesitant. She had been isolated her entire life. She had no relationship experience. She was terrified. But Nicholas was patient and kind. He told her that her medical condition didn't matter, that she was an angel in his eyes, starving for human connection, for validation, for love. Gypsy fell for him. They exchanged messages on the dating site, then moved to Facebook. They shared photos and confided in each other. Nicholas said he wanted to marry her, that he would do anything for her, that he would be her Prince Charming, the one who would save her. For the first time in her life, Gypsy-Rose Blanchard was experiencing what it felt like to be wanted, to be loved, to matter to someone. But as the relationship progressed, it took darker turns. Nicholas revealed interests in violent sexual fantasies. Gypsy was uncomfortable but went along with it. They role-played. They created fantasy identities. And slowly the conversation shifted, from romance to desperation, from love to escape, from fantasy to murder. By 2013, Gypsy and Nicholas discussed ways to escape Dee Dee's control. At first, it was fantasy. Running away, moving to another state, building a new life. But fantasy became concrete. By 2014, they had discussed at least 3 scenarios: poison, smothering, stabbing. These were not idle conversations. They were detailed plans. Gaudejon asked for specific information about Dee Dee's bedroom, her sleeping habits, her daily routine. Did she sleep soundly? Would she struggle if attacked? Gypsy provided the information. By May 2014, the plans were concrete. But there was an obstacle: money. Gaudejon had little income. Gypsy sent him stolen cash. She told him to buy a bus ticket. She told him to come to Springfield. She told him that when he arrived, they would finally be free. In June 2015, Nicholas Gaudejon boarded a bus heading south. In his pocket was cash from Gypsy. In his mind was a plan. In his heart was the desperate belief that what he was about to do was an act of love. June 10th, 2015. A humid summer evening in Springfield, Missouri. Gypsy and her mother had spent the day in their usual routine. Dee Dee had taken Gypsy to the hospital for her regularly scheduled feeding tube replacement. Evening had fallen. Dee Dee went to bed. Nicholas Gaudejon waited outside in the darkness. Gypsy sent him a signal. She let him into the house. Gypsy gave Nicholas a knife, duct tape, and gloves. She whispered her mother's location. Then she went to the bathroom and covered her ears. She didn't want to hear what was about to happen. Nicholas Gaudejon crept into Dee Dee's bedroom. She was sleeping. She was defenseless. She had no idea that the man standing over her was there to end her life. He raised the knife and began to stab, again and again and again. 17 times. Dee Dee Blanchard, the woman who had controlled her daughter's entire life, was murdered in her own bed. When it was over, Gypsy emerged. The deed was done. There was no going back now. They fled together, Gypsy walking without assistance, moving with a grace and mobility she had supposedly never possessed. They traveled to Wisconsin. They believed they were finally free. On June 14th, 2015, something alarming appeared on the joint Facebook account of Dee Dee and Gypsy-Rose Blanchard. "That bitch is dead." The post was crude and shocking, so out of character that many Facebook friends thought the account had been hacked. But then a second post appeared, more graphic, more disturbing. Someone called the police. Investigators arrived at the Blanchard home. They found the front door unlocked. In the bedroom, they found Dee Dee on her bed. She had been dead for days. Her body was in advanced decomposition. Blood stained the sheets. But where was Gypsy? Police traced the Facebook posts to Wisconsin, to a home in Big Bend, to the residence of Nicholas Godejohn. When authorities arrived, they found Gypsy and Nicholas inside. But something was shocking. Gypsy was standing, walking, speaking clearly. There was no wheelchair, no oxygen tank, no feeding tube. As detectives questioned Gypsy, the full scope of deception emerged. She confessed. She admitted to her role in the murder. She admitted that she had given Nicholas the knife, that she had hidden in the bathroom while her mother was stabbed to death. But she also revealed the true nature of her relationship with her mother. Gypsy was not disabled. She had never been disabled. Everything, the wheelchair, the feeding tube, the medications, the surgeries, the illnesses, was fabricated by Dee Dee. Dee Dee Blanchard had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a disorder in which a caretaker fabricates or induces illness in someone under their care for attention, sympathy, and financial benefit. Gypsy had spent her entire life imprisoned by her mother's mental illness. Dee Dee had not been a devoted mother. She had been an abuser, a manipulator, a woman so consumed by her need for attention that she had sacrificed her daughter's entire life. And Gypsy, trapped in that nightmare, had come to see murder as the only escape. In July 2016, Gypsy-Rose Blanchard pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas Godejohn went to trial and was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole. The case became one of the most sensational in recent American criminal history. It forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about medical abuse, psychological manipulation, and institutional failure. After serving 8 years, Gypsy-Rose Blanchard was granted early parole on December 28, 2023. She was released and eventually gave birth to a daughter, Aurora. For the first time in her life, she experienced the freedom to make her own choices. The case serves as a haunting reminder of how love can become a cage, of how institutions can fail vulnerable children, of how desperation can lead ordinary people to commit extraordinary violence. The murder of Dee Dee Blanchard was not a crime of passion. It was a calculated escape attempt by a young woman imprisoned by her mother's delusion. Gypsy-Rose Blanchard is now 32 years old. She is a mother. She is raising her daughter Aurora free from the medical abuse she endured. The years of trauma have left permanent scars. And Dee Dee Blanchard. Her name is remembered not as a devoted mother, but as a woman who destroyed her daughter in the name of love. If this case moved you, if Gypsy's tragedy resonated with you, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video, tell her story, because Gypsy-Rose Blanchard's life matters, because invisible prisons are still prisons, and because understanding how love can become a weapon is the first step toward preventing others from suffering the same fate. Thank you for watching.